MacVoices is supported by TextExpander by Smile. Find out just how powerful a few keystrokes can be at TextExpander.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is a follow-up to one of the discussions we had at MacStock with Mr. Brett Terpstra about the tools that he creates and the fact that there are so many of them out there that it's hard to keep track of them or even find them. And yet they're all so great because if they solve the problem for you, that's fantastic. And if they obviously have solved Brett's problem, and so he's generous enough to put them out there for us to enjoy. Brett, it's great to see you, even though I just saw you a couple weeks ago at MacStock.
I love seeing you, Chuck.
I love seeing you guys too. You and Al, it's so much fun, and that is such a great event.
It really is. I look forward to it every year now. Like I start looking forward to it 6 to 8 months in advance.
You know, I'm not sure anybody really believes this, but I agree completely. You know, as soon as you flip the calendar to the new year, it's like, okay, what are my events for the year? And MacStock is right up there, number one. It's the first thing I fill on. In fact, it's already on my calendar to make sure nothing gets blocked.
You already announced the dates for next year. I'm into it.
Yeah, so it's on my calendar. But we had a conversation at MacStock, and part of it was fun and jest, and part of it was deadly serious, that you have created so many tools, and sometimes they are so specific to just one situation that it's kind of hard for the rest of us to keep up with them and find them because you may have already solved a problem that we have. So I asked you if you could give us a tour of your tools and, you know, how we figure out whether we can use any of them.
Yes.
And so here we are.
Yes. So my site has a projects page, and that's the first place to look. It's at brettterpstra.com/projects. And that's divided into commercial products, things I make money on, of which there are only 6. And then it has my free projects, of which there are maybe 30 listed there. And these are things that got big enough to warrant their own like documentation page, download cards, all of this. And then at the bottom, there's my retired projects page, because you'll see looking at it that I make enough stuff I can't possibly maintain it all. So some things break over time, and I make a determination whether to continue updating them or not. So some projects get moved down into retired projects, but they're there because they were stuff that I liked enough that I didn't want to forget I ever made it.
And are those something that if someone asks you if they could be updated, is that something you consider?
Well, all the source and everything is there, so they're free for people to take and fix on their own. And if someone were to update a project to the point where it was working, or they start maintaining a GitHub repo, I'll turn the project over to them and link it from my site. That doesn't happen too often. That did happen with, I created a package for Sublime Text that turned it into a full-fledged Markdown editor. And that one, I wasn't keeping up with all of the requests that were coming in, and I kind of got frustrated with it. And someone else was nice enough to take that over as a maintainer. And now it's an official part of the package repository, and I don't have to work on it.
Okay, so one thing I want to make sure I don't forget is to ask about, because I think it's probably one of the most approachable things that you produce, and that is, in your talk at MacStock, you were referencing TextExpander snippets that you've created.
Yes.
Are they on the projects page, or are they archived
There is
somewhere?
a link on the projects page to the TextExpander tools, which, let me filter these real quick. Yeah. So that will take you to a page that lists out all of the different groups I have, and each one will link to a special URL called TE Snippets. It's a longer URL, so I'll let you find it from that page. But that's a tool that I built where you can view all the different groups that I've created, see what's in them and what they're going to provide you. And then it gives you a custom URL that you can add to TextExpander so that you can then get updates anytime the group is changed. So it's like an easy way to install all of those groups. I built a tool for all the tools.
You built a tool for the tool. That's perfect. That's perfect. So what kind of things from the TextExpander side are these very specific programming things, or
no, actually, some of them, like there's an AppleScript editor group that is just common AppleScript, like if blocks and property stuff like that. But if you go into, I really like lorem ipsum generators, because I often, in my world, I'm constantly working with string manipulation and need text to test on. So I build, you know what lorem ipsum is, filler text. Right. So I've built ones that work with 1984, the text from 1984, and they use rangrams to randomly generate paragraphs using short snippets of text from various sections of 1984. And I did the same with Alice in Wonderland. And those are two of my favorites to use, because the random sentences they come up with using just words from those texts are hilarious. And then I have tools. I have one that's for cursing. You can, if you type dagnabbit, it'll convert that into damn it, but it'll replace everything with, the random punctuation that you see in cartoons. If you type like, I can't remember what my shortcut was for the F word, but it'll just put F # at sign, randomly generate them every time. So it's a way to, like, as you're typing, censor yourself when you're typing on like Facebook and your mom and dad are going to see it. It'll censor you automatically. Yeah, stuff like that. There's about 10 groups of various tools. I have one called Make a Date that you type comma, MAD. Actually, using this tool, you can define whatever prefixes you want. I always use comma, but if you have something else, you can just punch it in at the top, and the URL that it creates for you will automatically modify everything to work with your prefix or suffix. So for me, comma, MAD space brings up a TextExpander fill-in window where I can just type like next Tuesday, I can abbreviate it TUE, next TUE 8 a.m. and it'll turn that into whatever format date I ask it to.
These are the kind of things, and I don't want to go off on a TextExpander rant for too much, but the idea of that profanity, I don't know, generator, creator,
filter,
censoring snippet, whatever. That's the kind of thing that you have to think outside the box a little bit. TextExpander would be perfect for that, and you would have the skill to create the randomization rather than just a straight replace. But I mean,
that's the case with a lot of my tools. Is over the years I've been programming long enough, I've been solving problems long enough that I've built up a tool set that I can use to solve these problems. So what for someone else or even me 10 years ago would have seen as that's just the way it has to be problem, I have the tools now to, in usually minimal time, solve a problem. And then rather than put out a bunch of books on how to do this stuff, I just share the solutions. That's why my downloads page has gotten to be, obese with all of the projects that I do. I could spend more time teaching Amanda fish, but I like to give away the fish.
Because you like to fish.
Yeah, I love fishing. I mean, that's it, right? I'm not doing this as drudgery, solving problems for everyone else. I'm solving the problems I have in a way that I find fun. And then it helps me justify the time that I spend solving problems if I can share them with other people and they help other people too. It's a way to make myself feel better.
Well, you said something during our discussion at MacStock that I thought was very interesting. You said that this is one of the ways that you relax, that you find fulfillment and relaxation in this.
Yes.
And a lot of us, I can understand it, because I think I find that kind of relaxation, maybe not exactly in coding, but in other online activities that have to do more with being productive than they do with consuming media or social media or anything else.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you've recognized that about yourself, and then you kind of channel it a little bit and turn it into giving back to everybody else, or maybe making you a little bit of money too.
Occasionally. But yeah, I mean, that is the only way to justify the amount of time I spend on it. But I do spend time on it because at the end of a day, or sometimes in the middle of a day, if I just need a break, if I just want to relax, solving problems using code is relaxing for me. Writing regular expressions, looking at a string and figuring out how can I pattern match this to make it generally useful. That's the kind of problem that I find fun and relaxing to play with. And occasionally I'll hit a bug that becomes an obsession, like something that I dream about because I'm so focused on solving it that it is not relaxing anymore, but it's still enjoyable.
And before someone says, "Boy, this is a little bit strange," I know plenty of people that will pull out a puzzle game. Now, admittedly, those are more video oriented, but they'll pull out a puzzle game on their iPhone and play it, sometimes to borderline obsession, or even something as simple as a card game of solitaire. So
I think the more apropos allegory here would be people who do artistic things, who like to paint to relax, who doodle or draw. Like, that's the equivalent for me. It's an artistic expression. I'm an art school kid. Like, I this is a form of art for me, a creative expression.
And if you're an art school kid, then you're one of those that feels driven to express yourself creatively, and this is the way you choose to do it.
And who's also used to going through 5-hour-long critiques that make me cry but end up creating better projects.
You want to elaborate on that a little?
Well, so when I was in art school, we'd do like figure drawing class, and we'd spend hours drawing something. And then each person would go through a critique process, and the critique classes would be 5 hours long. And you would probably get critiqued for about 45 minutes, just everybody in class telling you everything that was wrong with what you did. And it would be devastating. After putting that amount of work into something, to spend almost as long tearing it apart as you did building it, it's an emotional thing. And that being able to do that, though, prepared me for when I put a project out online. If I did something wrong, I face liability. If my script formats someone's hard drive, they're going to be upset. But also, there are going to be plenty of other coders who can look at my code and say, you don't know what you're doing. And especially when I first started sharing things that I was learning, that was a huge risk. Like, there was always going to be someone reading my blog that was better at what I did than I was. And I had to be willing to put it out there, accept criticism, learn from it, and then make better stuff. And the critique process is a big part of actually making a good product.
Smile and TextExpander are sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. Do you want to do something quick and easy to improve your productivity? Want something that is bulletproof that will improve the quality of your work? Are you looking for a utility that can integrate with just about any program on your Mac to make it better? If so, you're looking for TextExpander from Smile. TextExpander works pretty much everywhere on the Mac, inside just about any program. Desktop publishing, email, web publishing, browsers, task management applications, chat applications, the list goes on and on. Because all of those require text entry, and TextExpander helps you enter text quickly and accurately. Have a word, phrase, paragraph, or page that you need inserted regularly? TextExpander does it with a few keystrokes. Have a word that you misspell frequently? TextExpander can help you fix that so that it never happens again. Want to standardize wording to customer inquiries across your entire team? TextExpander is the answer. With almost no learning curve and massive payback on the time invested, you should be using TextExpander. Visit TextExpander.com right now, download a free trial, and find out what so many of the productivity experts already know. TextExpander from Smile, the makers of world-class software. Thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. I did not know that. Not being an art school person, I had no idea that kind of thing would happen. I mean, I've been through speech classes and different classes like that, but probably not that it doesn't have the same intensity because the work that you put into it is nowhere near equivalent to what you were putting into the project that was then being critiqued.
Yeah. It's an especially intense version of what most people think of as constructive criticism.
Interesting. Do you ever get criticism for any of your work, your online work, your programming work?
Do I get criticism?
Yeah.
Usually people will find fault with, I guess there's two types of critique. One is from people who just want to use it and have no idea how it works, but they wish it did something different. So I would consider those more in the like feature request / bug report category. And then there are other programmers who are happy to say, you could have done these 10 lines with one line. You could increase the efficiency of this by completely rewriting this section, or here, I did it for you. So there's always, those are generally very constructive because everyone out there who's coding learns that same way. They figure out how to make something work, and then someone else can point out how to make it work better. And we're used to that. And maybe the first couple of times you might be offended, but there's really no room to be offended in that world. You're constantly learning, and someone constantly has figured out something that you haven't yet, and people are happy to share, and there's a lot of openness around that. So it's really something to appreciate more than fear.
My experience in the programming world tends to come from my visits to WWDC, my interviews here with people that do coding for a living. And I do get a sense that there's quite a camaraderie among programmers. I don't get the sense that it's cutthroat at all, like some other businesses. And I really respect and admire that. I think the same thing is true for the most part with podcasters. They're comrades. We compete with each other, but we don't compete with each other. And you're happy to help out somebody else. That's the sense I get from programming. Is that or programmers? Is that a correct perception?
Yeah. There's always the snobby programmer or podcaster that everyone learns to just think of as kind of a jerk. They don't take criticism, and they're free flowing with their critiques of other people's work. But they are the exception to the rule. And in general, the coding community, much like the podcaster community, is very open to sharing and helping to improve each other's work.
Yeah, and there's always that. I think you're right. That idea that, okay, I did it in 10 lines and here's a way to do it in 1 or 2 that people want to share. And it's not even necessarily showing off. It's just, hey, this, adding to your project, adding to your knowledge.
I shared something because I figured out. They shared a better solution because they figured it out. We learn things and we share them. So,
Brett, we talked about TextExpander. Are there other applications that you write tools for? And I'm thinking specifically of something like Keyboard Maestro.
Yes. If you're on my projects page, at the top of the it's a bunch of cards that describe each project, but you can pull down one of the filters at the top and change it from title to Brett's favorites. And that that'll bring my starred projects, the ones that I'm most interested in, to the top. And that includes pop clip extensions. That includes a bunch of system services, which I do a lot of. It includes, URL preview, things like action extensions for Mac OS, so that you can perform actions on files and text that go beyond what services can do. I do some Keyboard Maestro. It's not a ton. I write a lot of stuff that is designed to run in the terminal. Those don't always make it to my projects page because the projects page is focused more towards people who aren't spending their day on the command line. I've written WordPress plugins, TextMate bundles, plugins for Simplify, the Spotify player for the Mac desktop. I don't even know if it's maintained anymore, but I had a lot of fun making widgets for that. And Übersicht. I've never figured out how to pronounce this. It's like Geek Tool, that puts widgets all over your desktop. It's an app that's similar to that, and it's spelled U with an umlaut, Bersicht. And I made a video about one of my projects on it once, but I mispronounced it all the way through. And I had a bunch of German viewers each send me WAV files of them pronouncing it. And it was Übersicht, I think. But anyway, I edited their pronunciations into the video. So every time I said it, it would just let an actual German person pronounce the word for me. Yeah, that was a weird tangent. Sorry. But
but Brett, that's the way your mind works. That's what I think makes these conversations so interesting. Is if you figure out a way to make it work and make it better, and even if it maybe isn't quite as polished as you would like, it works.
Yeah, that's fair. So, in honor of this episode, I polished up, mostly created a new tool that also shows the breadth of my project. If you go to brettterpstra.com/downloads, it will give you a list of every download I've created. So this doesn't include a lot of the scripts that I just put in posts as text, but anything I've ever created a download for gets put on this page. And there are about 115 of them. And if you hover over, or if you click on any of the icons next to each one, it'll give you a brief description and a link to the page where it came from. So that is if you can't find it with search and it's not on the projects page, you'll probably find it at /downloads now.
And how long did it take you to make that particular tool?
About 45 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
At least I don't think so.
Well, so I built this whole download system for my blog. I use Jekyll, and it's a static site generator. So it takes a bunch of markdown files and just creates straight HTML. There's no database behind my site. And it gives me the ability to create entire systems inside of it, which included, I have a CSV file that has all of my downloads, the name of the download, brief description, version number, date updated, all of this stuff. And then it uses that when I have a tag in a post that says download 110, it goes in and finds the ID 110 in the CSV file and then generates a little download card from it. So this page basically just goes through that entire CSV file and creates a table with all that information that was already there. So it wasn't a huge recompile everything. It was just finding another way to use the system I had already built previously. That probably took me more than 45 minutes.
I'm going to apologize because I'm going to make a left turn here because I want to hear more about this part. You use a static site generator, as
Yeah.
opposed to a database-driven website, which surprises me a lot because it seems like so much of the popular wisdom is that everything is going database. That there's a database behind everything. Is that just is there a particular reasoning or rationale behind why you prefer or use a static site generator?
So the two biggest issues you'll run into when using something database oriented like WordPress are security. Anytime you're running a database, you have potential security flaws, and speed, reliability. If you get fireballed with a WordPress site, you got a 50-50 chance that your site's going to crash after the first 10,000 visitors hit it, or maybe after 100 if they come fast enough. If you have a static HTML site, you're never going to have that happen. There's no security because there's no communication happening server side. It's simply serving a static page, and there's no possibility of a database crashing, which is if a WordPress site's going to crash, it's usually the connection to the database that'll go. So it gives me a way to avoid both of those problems, and I get to keep all of my posts as markdown text files in a folder I don't have to query a database or go into an editor. I can just open up any of my posts in a text editor, edit them, and generate the site again.
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
It does and it doesn't. There's a lot of convenience to be had with databases and using something like WordPress that I do actually kind of miss. Like I made this decision a few years ago to go static. I waver on it, but in general, it served me well.
Well, as someone who's had a lot of really great experience with WordPress, and also some frustrating times with WordPress, and like you said, security matters, and database matters, and database corruption, and those kind of things. Sometimes it's like you yearn for the good old days of just straight HTML, and yet you don't always have the same convenience that you do with, as you said, with WordPress. So, and you have the technical skill to build and maintain your site with a static HTML generator. And a lot of the tools that used to be used for that have kind of gone by the wayside. Not all of them, but a lot of the ones that were accessible to mere mortals.
Yeah. I mean, my site is built on thousands of lines of custom Ruby code. If I did not have the ability to do that, I never would have been drawn to Jekyll to begin with, because at its bare bones, when you first install it, it doesn't do half the stuff I could currently do on my WordPress site. Things like having tags and related posts based on tags. You kind of have to, or at least when I first installed Jekyll, you have to hack that in. And once I was able to do that, I began to, the download system, for example, like I had that working in WordPress. It was fine. And then I switched to a static site generator, and I had to come up with a manual way to replicate that same thing. So it comes with some hardships. I don't recommend it for the faint of heart.
No, I would agree with that. And unfortunately, as the world changes and new security procedures and code has to come into place, sites break. And I think all of us hold our breaths. All of us, the publisher on WordPress, hold our breath when a new version of WordPress comes out and you install it. It's like, okay, what's going to break? Which one of my tools, which one of my plugins, are going to break, and then I'm going to have to go back and retool everything. And it's just, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's kind of catastrophic.
Same thing can happen. Like if you're using a static site generator that's based on Ruby or Python, if that language gets a major update, if you're using Ruby 1.9 and all of a sudden you jump to Ruby 2.4, your site's going to break. All those custom tools you built are going to break, and you're going to have to retool. So it's not immune to that problem. Happens less often, but it's not immune.
Right. And then you have things like Squarespace that they take care of all that stuff for you. sometimes at a price, and I've have Squarespace sites too, and I really like what they do. There are a couple things I wish they would do, but it's all cost benefit. Trying to figure out if you're getting the benefit, it's going to cost you something. It may cost you in features, it may cost you in money, it may cost you in something else. But
for me, my problem with Squarespace is it is really easy, and I actually really like Squarespace, but I don't have easy access directly to my own content. Everything has to be done through their editor. I have no other way to access the database even. I can't store everything as my own markdown files. I can't back them up myself. Everything's very reliant on Squarespace. And if Squarespace were to disappear, I'd have no guarantee that my content comes back to me.
And you took it right out of my mouth. My biggest objection, and I know that it's been published, I know Daniel Jalkut has explained, but I can't use Mars Edit with my Squarespace sites.
Right. Or really, there are very few tools I think that can work with Squarespace.
Yeah, except for their own, which is fine. They make some pretty decent tools. But to your point, putting your content in is easy. Sometimes getting it back out, and this applies not to just Squarespace, to a lot of others, you almost have to. I personally use kind of a double backup system for that, where, all right, I've got it over here now. I'll cut and paste and save it over here, someplace that's accessible for me, just in case anything happens.
Yeah, which is a step that one shouldn't have to take. I believe. Yeah,
but that just means we both share that paranoia and that fear of losing this.
We've both been doing this long enough to know that it happens.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, Squarespace has sponsored this show, and I think I have I have 4 or 5 sites that I manage on Squarespace. And so it is a great service. And if you didn't understand or appreciate what Brett and I were just talking about, then you probably would have zero concerns about Squarespace. Because again, I use it and I really like it. In fact, I'm building a new site on it right now. But Brett and I have been around, and you have to be just a little concerned about things like that.
Well, to that point, both of my podcasts, both currently on hiatus, but Overtired and Systematic both run on Squarespace. And I consider Squarespace superior to other options for running my podcast site. They make the enclosures and the updates very easy. Adding my show notes is simpler than it would be if I were creating a new post every time in WordPress for it. I think Squarespace does have a place and does a really good job with it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think so. We can both endorse Squarespace as much or more than we endorse just about anything else.
Sure.
Because how do you feel about WordPress? I like WordPress. The MacVoices site itself is built on WordPress. Very powerful. About as convenient as not, in some ways more convenient than Squarespace, and in other ways not as much.
So WordPress as a platform, well, I guess as a user from like the web side of it, I think WordPress is pretty great. If I switch away from running a static site at any point, I will probably go back to WordPress. From a programmer perspective, when I want to make custom plugins for it and whatnot, I find the code base is a bit frustrating, and I don't like coding in PHP in general. So for that reason, it's not my top choice for blogging platform. But I do consider it's a really good web content management system.
The only thing about Squarespace, it has achieved that which Windows achieved, that it is so dominant in the publishing market that
ubiquity.
The ubiquity, but it's such a target now for anybody that wants to hack or attack.
Same with WordPress, yeah. Or did you mean to say WordPress or Squarespace?
Oh, yes. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Did
Yeah.
I say no? I meant WordPress. That
Yeah.
Windows WordPress. The
It
two
is
W.
the target
It
for
is the
sure.
target. Yeah, and so you better make sure that you have security in place, and that you do the updates quite frequently. Keep it up to
Yeah.
date. Try to stay as protected as you can. Yeah, Squarespace takes care of all that. You never see it, and frankly, from a security standpoint, I've never had a problem with Squarespace at all.
No, I mean, they're locked down enough that it's not the problem WordPress runs into is everyone can take their source code, directly and run it on whatever server they want. So they have no control over the server setups, the server security. They have no control over whether people keep it up to date. Squarespace has control over all of that. Squarespace runs on their servers with their settings, and no one else can touch their code or even examine their code to find the weak spots. They have a much easier job of providing security than WordPress does.
Seems like there's a comparison there to be made with Apple and locking down
The walled garden.
The walled garden.
But also Apple, up until recently, they didn't have, like you said, with Windows, they didn't have that ubiquity. So they weren't the primary target for finding those exploits and finding those hacks. But to that end, the hacks and exploits that have been found for the Mac or for Apple ecosystem in general are generally bizarre enough and come out early enough and get patched quickly enough that they never reach the critical state that Windows XP security patches were constantly. They didn't have the flaws to begin with. It's built on a relatively secure Unix system. The one where you could hit escape and take root just by typing root into the login screen and then hitting enter and then hitting escape and then typing root again gave you root access to a Mac. That was a major flaw and one that I found very disappointing. But in general, there aren't a bunch of worms and cracks that you can run to take over a Mac OS operating system.
Yeah, and the software is built by humans, and humans make mistakes, and I agree with you. That's a big one, but it's still a mistake. And Apple did patch it, quite rapidly. Sometimes I look at some of these things that come out of the hackers conferences, and it's like, okay, you can do it, but how do you go about thinking that, tap this thing 3 times, take your shoe off and stick your finger out the window and, you're in. I mean, where did you come up with this? How much time did you spend to do this? And why, other than the fact that they just enjoy trying to dig into systems?
Yeah, well, and I think the beauty of those hacker conferences is you're finding a bunch of people who do find creative expression in finding exploits. And the hacker conference then provides the information that companies need to lock down even the most obscure exploitable bugs in their systems. I think everyone should have more hacker conferences and bring more of those people together in a very white hat environment where everyone's just looking to help a company find and fix, and companies should be paying good money for that. And a lot of them are. So I have a great admiration for DEF CON and other conferences.
No, I agree. I mean, I've been to one, and it is very interesting to see the kind of people there and their dedication and their intensity and their focus on their craft.
Yeah.
You have to respect anybody that is into it that much and the way they go about it. And to your point, these are white hat conferences. It's not like, they're trying to do nefarious stuff. It's just like there's a door in front of them and they want to try to figure out how to unlock it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like Tesla put up you could win a Tesla if you found a bug. There were certain criteria, but they basically put a Tesla out on the floor and said, "Here, hack this," and we'll give a Tesla to whoever finds the bugs. And they did. That's beneficial to a company.
Absolutely. And it's beneficial to the rest of us. And that's the word hacker has become, not necessarily a nice word. And that's a real injustice, because those hackers that are doing the good stuff, I mean, they're the ones that are going to prevent your car, your self-driving car, from being taken over by someone, or your Mac from being hacked, or your server from being hacked, or your email from being hacked. Now, if we can just get the corporate InfoSec people to pay a little more attention to their security, we would be in good shape.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other discussion.
It really is.
Brett, to circle back to your stuff. So it's brettterpstra.com, and just a couple specific places to go, and a couple little channels to navigate, and there's just a wealth of information and tools there to solve problems.
Yeah, all kinds of problems.
I really, on behalf of everyone, I really appreciate it. I did want to make sure, you said some are available commercially, so let's talk about those for just a second, so folks know what they are.
Well, I have 2 books that I've written with David Sparks called 60 Mac Tips, Volume 1 and 2. And those are iBookstore books with videos. Like every tip has a short video with it. He has since converted those into his video field guide format, and they are available at learn.macsparky.com. I have an app called Marked 2 that is a previewer for Markdown. It can do a ton of fun stuff with any Markdown file and help you output PDFs and rich text documents and everything. And then a free project I have is called NVAlt, which is an alternative fork of Notational Velocity, a note-taking application. And we're about to release, Fletcher, Penny, and I, of multi-Markdown fame, are about to release NV Ultra, which is the evolution of NVAlt into a commercial product. And hopefully that will be available in September, I hope. The ETA keeps getting pushed back, but we've never set a firm ETA either, so I don't feel horrible about that. The last time I tried to do this and put out a successor to NVAlt, I kept saying it was coming for 5 years before I had gone quiet. I was about to just give up on it because my partner had disappeared. The code was no longer compiling on the latest operating system, and I didn't have the bandwidth to fix that. That got scrapped, but then I started this with Fletcher Penny, and this one is in beta stage. We have 500 testers. It's going to happen.
I hope you'll come back and show us a little bit of it and explain it once it's out.
Sure, I'd love to.
That'd be a very interesting, and have Fletcher come as well if he will. But yeah, I think that'd be a great show, definitely. If folks are using some of the tools that are not necessarily for commercial use, is there a way for them to show their gratitude by throwing you a couple coins?
At the top of the projects page, and on every projects page, there's a heart-shaped button that will take you to a donation page, which you can also go directly from the site menu. Just go to contribute. And I get both direct donations, and people can sign up to send monthly, like $3 a month or whatever you want to provide as support. And I don't offer anything additional for people who pay, which I've often thought I should, but I don't have the energy. But basically, I just give everything away for free and hope that people will pitch back in, and people do. And it's I make the buttons prominent, but people are also very generous.
That's great. I'm glad that you have that option. And it's interesting. You with your project sounds very familiar to the attitude I have about supporting MacVoices, supporting any of my shows. People do rewards and people do different things, and they have different tiers, and depending on the content, that's great. But I would rather have the material out there and let everybody enjoy it, and then people contribute based on the value they get from it, than spend my time trying to administrate, who gets a sticker, who gets a mug, who gets a T-shirt.
It takes a lot of energy.
It takes a huge amount of energy, and I don't think people understand that. And especially you're a solo programmer, I'm a solo podcaster. I mean, if I need to do it, yeah, I'll do it, but I really don't want to. I would much rather have figure out a way to occasionally provide the supporters with something a little bit different and unique. But to me, does it make any sense for us to do this interview and then have it locked behind some kind of paywall that this is just for supporters of MacVoices?
Yeah.
There's information that people would benefit from. I feel like I would be cheating you if by saying, hey, this is going to be locked behind this paywall, but let me take up 40 minutes, 50 minutes of your time anyway. That just doesn't do it. So we have very similar philosophies there.
Yeah. Well, and for both of us, the stuff we create covers a wide enough range of topics and areas that the chances, if you take the small group of people willing to pay and give them access to everything, the chances that what you have is going to be directly applicable to that group is a lot slimmer than if it were available to everybody and the people who needed it could find it and then make the choice to pay. And that's where my thought process usually ends up. I could publish this script and just send it to the 100 people that send me monthly donations, or I could put it out there for the entire internet and see if I can attract more people.
Right. Yeah. Good. I couldn't agree more. And your point about the breadth of stuff for both of us is a really good one, because you aren't so focused on just WordPress. And I'm certainly not focused on just programming discussions or hardware discussions or whatever. We both cover a broad range, and so I'd like to think that we're doing the right thing. Hopefully, it's definitely the easiest for me. Yeah, well, for both of us. But it's also to your point about doing stuff you want to do. I don't want to spend my time trying to administrate that kind of thing. I'd much rather spend more time talking to more people like you and the folks that I talk to at MacStock and the folks that we talk to all the time. It's much more interesting. It's a whole lot more fun for me too. So
see, we need to hire people.
Okay.
Hire administrators to handle our social media accounts and our Patreon audiences, and just continue doing what we're doing while someone else turns it profitable.
Yeah, but then it loses some of its authenticity. And I know
also that takes money to make money. And I don't know.
But the word authenticity is overused. But I'd much rather have, if somebody messages me anywhere, it's going to be me that gets back to them, not my assistant, or whoever.
I am renowned for my quick responses and friendliness to everyone who randomly DMs me. And that takes energy, but that I actually enjoy doing. I wouldn't want to delegate that.
No, exactly. Those are the fun parts that neither one of us want to give up.
I shouldn't say renowned so much as frequently lauded. People tell me how much they appreciate it. It's not like there's a meme going around about it, but people who have contacted me have a good feeling about it. I hope that's true of everyone. I'm sure I missed some, but.
Well, and I do too. You try to get back to someone as quickly as you can, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. And once in a while, things slip through the cracks. But you're doing the best you can. So am I, and that's all any of us can do.
It's like with this NV Ultra beta, people probably 20 a day people directly contact me asking to get in on the private beta, which I've set as full with a few exceptions. And I have a TextExpander snippet for letting people into the beta. For those that I say, yeah, you fit our criteria, we need you as a tester. Here's everything you need. For the people I deny, I find myself writing a personal apology to everyone because everyone needs a slightly different explanation of why I can't let you in. And I really need to make that a little more streamlined, given the number of those I'm sending out. But yeah, personal touch.
Yeah, that's what it's all
You
about.
get a personal denial from me if you contact me.
I'm not sure you should have said that, Brett. You were doing good right up to that point.
Tact is not my skill.
Oh, man. Hey, this has been fun. We went off on a couple tangents, but this has been a lot of fun. I hope everybody enjoyed listening to us ramble a little.
I hope so. We actually did not talk about any specific projects in depth, so that alleviates some fear I had going into this, that I was going to have to describe all 120 projects, but we're good.
Yeah, well, I would like to hear about, number 58, but no, never mind.
Oh, 58.
We'll do that. No, we'll do that another time.
It'd probably be like pod tagger. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go look it up and then we'll discuss it at a later date. But definitely, come back and talk to us when the new project is up and running, and would love to enlighten people as to what it is and what it can do for them.
Sounds great.
As always, where can folks find you and your renowned personal denials?
I'm at brettterpstra.com, 3 T's in the middle of that. And you can also find me as TTScoff, TTSCOFF, on every social media site.
Great. Brett, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for the time.
Good to see you, Chuck.
Talk to you soon. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I really hope you did enjoy this. I certainly enjoyed it. And hopefully we've steered you in a direction to find some tools that can help you be a little more productive or solve some of your problems. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.